Welcome to this week's edition of Ask an MS Expert. I'm John Strum, and I'm the host of the Real Talk MS podcast. Each week, Real Talk MS reaches thousands of people in more than 90 countries around the world with the news that people affected by MS need to know. My wife, Jean, lived with progressive MS for 23 years, so I've had a front row seat experiencing all the ways that MS can impact a family. Currently, I'm a member of the International Progressive MS Alliance Scientific Steering Committee. I'm a district activist leader and trustee for the National MS Society, and I chair the Society's California Government Relations Advisory Committee. As we get underway today, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our national sponsor, SureScripts. Support from MS community partners helps the National MS Society reach its goal of providing up-to-date information and support through programs like Ask an MS Expert. And thank you to all of you who are joining us on GoToWebinar, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. The MS Society's Ask an MS Expert webcast is designed to connect you with MS experts who are ready to answer your questions on the topics that impact people affected by MS every day. So as I chat with our experts today, please feel free to post your questions on Facebook and YouTube, or type them into the question box if you're joining us on GoToWebinar. We'll try to answer as many of your questions as we can during the Q&A portion of today's program. Advances in research are leading us to better understand and treat MS. Today, we're lucky to have two experts with us to talk about some of these advances. Dr. Nancy Sicott is a professor and chair of the Department of Neurology at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, California, where she's also the director of the Multiple Sclerosis Program and founding director of the Neurology Residency Training Program. Dr. Sicott also chairs the National MS Society's National Medical Advisory Committee, and she leads the expert task force that the Society has convened to provide guidance for COVID-19 vaccines and MS. Dr. Bruce Bebo is also joining us today. Dr. Bebo is the Executive Vice President of Research at the National MS Society, where he's responsible for leading the Society's global research strategy focused on achieving breakthroughs for people affected by MS. Dr. Bebo recently attended the America's Committee for Treatment and Research in MS Forum, or the ACTRIMS Forum, where top MS specialists and scientists gathered to discuss the latest MS research updates and promising paths to uncover solutions for everyone living with MS. I'd like to begin our discussion by welcoming Dr. Sicott. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, John. I'm happy to be here.
Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that COVID-19 is a novel coronavirus, and the published data available about this virus and MS are limited. The information and recommendations presented in our program are based upon individual professional opinions of MS experts and the evidence currently available about MS, COVID-19, vaccines, and disease-modifying therapies. Please be sure to check with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your treatment plan. Dr. Sicott, the team of experts you lead continues to review advances in COVID-19 and MS research and adjust guidance as new information surfaces and new vaccines are authorized for use. Recently, the FDA approved the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. How does this vaccine differ from the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines?
So, John, this vaccine uses more traditional technology to deliver the material to support the immune response. And this is an adenovirus vector. And this is a pretty typical way that vaccines have been developed previously. This has the advantage of being a single shot as opposed to the other mRNA vaccines, which require 2 injections. It also is much more easily transported. It doesn't require the ultra cold temperatures and other kinds of reconstitution that make the mRNA vaccines a little bit more challenging to use. So it's really a welcome addition to the group of vaccines that are available because it's so easy to give and it's a one and done. And so I think this really expands the scope of the vaccination program. So we're excited by that.
Todd wrote in saying that he heard the J&J vaccine is less effective than the other vaccines. What can you tell us about the J&J vaccine's efficacy?
So I think it's important to keep in mind the different timing of when these the two groups of vaccines were tested. So the J&J vaccine was tested during a time when there were a larger number of variants and it was a different era in terms of the COVID pandemic. What we are looking for in these vaccines is to keep people from ending up in the hospital with severe COVID or dying. And all of the vaccines are extremely effective in that regard. So that's really the key metric. We're taking this virus that could be deadly and turning it into potentially a nuisance kind of small cold that you might experience, for example. So when we're using the outcome measure that's the most meaningful clinically and the most important, which is hospitalization and death, all of the vaccines are extraordinarily effective. And so that's really what we're aiming for to get this pandemic under control.
I think it's important for people to hear the answer to my next question over and over again. So although I've asked you in previous conversations, I'm going to ask again. Should people living with MS get a COVID-19 vaccine?
Well, this is an easy one. The answer is yes, yes, and yes. When you have the opportunity to receive a vaccine, please take it. They're safe and they're effective and they're the key to getting back to a more normal life.
You mentioned that when you have the opportunity to get that vaccine, get it. Dr. Sykott, are you recommending any one vaccine over the others, specifically for people who are living with MS?
The best vaccine is the one that you can get into your arm. So that's the one that we recommend. And, you know, there just is no way for an individual patient to know when they sign up which vaccine is going to be made available to them. So they should take what they can, what's offered to them, what's available to them. I think it's also important to think about, you know, this is the first step in this process of getting the pandemic under control. We truthfully don't know if COVID will disappear or if this will be something like the flu, where we're going to be getting boosters each year in order to keep it under control. So the idea right now is just to get as many people vaccinated as soon as possible so that we can get things under control. And then in the future, it might be that there'll be different approaches or boosters that will be given depending on how well we do right now to get things under control. So the most important thing is just to get the vaccine that's made available to you as possible.
What should someone consider when thinking about timing their MS medications with COVID-19 vaccines?
So in general, we don't recommend changing your disease-modifying therapy in relation to vaccine administration. And that's because the vast majority of MS medications don't have an impact on the vaccine and the vaccine's effectiveness. I will just back up and say, first and foremost, that the vaccines are safe and there's no concerns about mixing the vaccine with any of the disease-modifying therapies. So all of them are safe to use with your therapy. They're also safe to use when you're not on therapy. So I know that you had mentioned there were some questions about, I'm not on a disease-modifying therapy, should I get vaccinated? Absolutely. Everyone should get vaccinated. So it's a little bit more nuanced when we talk about efficacy. So again, safety is not a question, but efficacy. So we do know that the timing for some medications that are what we call the B cell depleters, like rituximab and ocrelizumab, there is some potential benefit if you have the option of timing when you do your vaccine versus when you get your infusions. In particular, for people who are just starting out, just getting diagnosed and beginning disease-modifying therapy, in general, if you look at the inserts for these drugs, there's recommendations to do vaccinations before you start. So to complete your vaccinations and then get the medications. And we would definitely recommend that for our patients who might be starting a new disease-modifying therapy, to think about getting their vaccines first. Again, these always have to be caveats of checking with your practitioner, because there may be individual situations that require different kinds of approaches. But in general, you should continue on your disease-modifying therapy. And then if you have access to the vaccine and you have questions, you should consult your treating physician. And also you can utilize the advice that we have up on, that's posted on the National MS Society website, that provides very specific suggestions and guidance. These are not guidelines, but these are sort of a framework to help you think about the timing of especially these infusion medications.
Well, thank you, Dr. Sykott, for keeping us updated on a subject that I know is on everyone's mind.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the opportunity to come and share the task force work.
Always happy to talk to you about that. And if you'd like to learn more about COVID-19 and MS, as Dr. Sykott just recommended, please visit nationalmssociety.org/COVID-19. Now I'd like to take a moment to welcome those of you who have continued to join us on GoToWebinar, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. Please let us know what's on your mind. Post your comments and questions on Facebook and YouTube, or type them into the question box if you've joined us on GoToWebinar. MS navigators are also online throughout today's program, answering questions and connecting you with resources. Our Ask an MS Expert live event takes place at this same time every Friday, so please help us make sure that everyone knows about it by sharing news about the webcast with your family, your friends, and on your social channels. Now let's switch gears and focus on a research update from the recent ACTRIMS forum. And for that conversation, I'd like to welcome Dr. Bruce Bebo. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Bebo.
Yeah, good to be with you.
The ACTRIMS forum provided opportunities for scientists to meet virtually, share results, and plot the next steps in advancing MS research on a variety of fronts. The theme of this year's conference was the spectrum of multiple sclerosis, emphasizing how varied MS can be and how it can change at different stages of a person's life. Dr. Bebo, you've attended the ACTRIMS forum before. What made this year's conference so unique?
Well, John, like everything else, this very popular research conference, which was held just a couple weeks ago at the end of February, was a virtual meeting. And while we would have all preferred to be in sunny Florida for the meeting in person, the virtual environment that the meeting organizers created for this really proved to be a productive and interesting way to share the latest developments in MS. Some of the highlights included the Barantic Prize Award presented on myelin repair therapy by Dr. Dwight Burgles, and the Kenneth Johnson Memorial Lecture that was given by Dr. Ben Siegel from Ohio State University that focused on inflammaging in MS. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more. There were also over 300 poster presentations, many of which were presented by society-supported investigators. And so, while COVID has really, it has provided some challenges to the research community, I think what I left from that meeting, John, was I just was really impressed with the progress that's still being made in MS research, despite the challenging times that we're in. And I think, to me, this really reflects the resolve and the urgency that the MS movement has to find cures for MS as soon as possible.
Well, I heard you mention myelin repair, and it was certainly a major topic of interest for people living with MS and a major topic of interest at ACTRIMS. Before we talk a little bit about myelin repair, can you quickly explain what myelin is and remind us how it relates to MS?
Sure. So myelin is a lipid or fatty sort of rich membrane that surrounds nerve cell axons, and this is the nervous system's wires, and it acts as an insulator. And it allows the nervous system to conduct a rapid and efficient electrical impulses. And myelin and the cells that produce myelin, and those cells are called oligodendrocytes, which is a mouthful. We generally just call them oligos. Those cells appear to be one of the primary targets of an autoimmune response in MS. And so damage to those oligos and the myelin sheath by an overreactive immune system is really what's driving relapses. And it makes the nervous system more susceptible to neurodegenerative processes that contribute more to that slow accumulation of disability that some people with MS experience.
Angela wrote in asking if the damage MS has caused can be repaired. What can you share with us?
Well, I'd say, and you mentioned this earlier, some of the most significant advancements in MS research over the last 5 or 10 years has really been in myelin repair. And we now have an appreciation that the nervous system has an untapped potential to promote myelin repair in MS, and we're starting to develop strategies to unleash this potential. So now there are 2 major approaches for repairing myelin. The first one is endogenous repair, or another way of thinking about this is the ability of the body to accelerate the body's natural ability to promote repair. And then the other approach would be exogenous repair. The concept would be about transplanting cells that can promote repair. So there's a growing list of targets for endogenous repair, and there's a growing list of mostly small molecule compounds that have been shown to enhance repair in cell culture and in animal models. And there have also been a handful of clinical trials of myelin repair promoting drugs that have shown promise in humans. So our increasing knowledge of the cells and the factors involved in remyelination and improved ways that we can measure myelin repair, I feel are going to yield benefits for people with MS in the next few years. And regarding cell-based approaches, these also hold promise for promoting repair. But rather than directly repairing myelin, what these stem cells or cell-based approaches are doing is producing probably a cocktail of factors that after the cells are transplanted are thought to create an environment that favors repair. Again, cell culture and animal models have identified a number of viable approaches for cell-based therapy, and there are a handful of ongoing human clinical trials that should be reporting out in the next couple of years that I think will be informative about this cell-based approach for repairing myelin.
So if myelin is repaired, does that restore function that people living with MS may have lost?
Yeah, important question. So one thing to keep in mind is that during the early stages of MS, that myelin repair is really pretty active, and it probably contributes to some degree to the recovery from relapses. So the short answer is yes, remyelination can lead to restored function. But of course, there's a little longer, more complex answer, John. Whenever you ask me a question, it's not always simple. But as we age, the ability to repair myelin is diminished. This leaves the nervous system vulnerable to accelerated neurodegeneration, and it can lead to this slow, insidious progression of disability that's part of progressive MS. So figuring out how to reactivate myelin repair would go a long way to slowing down or stopping progression due to this neurodegeneration. Also, restoring function in people who have reached this more progressive phase of MS could be helped by treatments that promote repair, but also restoration of function in people with progressive MS could be also achieved through a combination of myelin repair and other strategies that take advantage or leverage the nervous system's ability to compensate for damage caused by MS. And a lot of these strategies fall into this emerging kind of categories of rehabilitation and exercise.
Well, as we've discussed here in previous episodes of Ask an MS Expert, exercise has been shown to deliver real measurable benefits for people living with MS. What did you hear at ACTRIMS about how exercise might be able to promote myelin repair in MS?
Yeah, right. So we're learning that exercise can promote an environment in the nervous system that promotes restoration of function, including myelin repair. So some researchers are starting to get to the bottom of this. And I was excited about one study that reported out at the ACTRIMS meeting a couple of weeks ago. Now, this study used sophisticated tools to look at and analyze the array of proteins that are expressed in the nervous system in groups of mice that either exercise regularly, so they put them on a wheel and make them run around, or on mice that were sedentary. And what they reported were increased levels of proteins known to be involved in the clearance of toxins and proteins known to have a role in enhancing myelin repair. And the study also showed that there were reductions in proteins that are known to contribute to damage in the group of exercising mice.
So have we seen enough evidence by now to conclude that people living with MS at every level of ability should stay active and engage in exercise or physical activity?
Again, the short answer is yes. The longer answer really, I mean, the evidence is accumulating, and the preponderance of evidence from both animal studies and in human studies suggests that physical activity has numerous benefits for people living with MS. So physical activity can reduce the risk for other health conditions, and we've heard this term comorbidities before. That refers to other health conditions. And we know that comorbidities can contribute to accelerating disability progression. So physical activity can reduce the risk for those other health conditions, and in turn, reduce the risk for progression. Physical activity probably promotes an environment in the nervous system that favors repair and also favors the ability of the nervous system to compensate for damage caused by MS. Physical activity has been shown to improve fatigue in MS and reduce the risk for cognitive decline and mental health challenges in people with MS. And physical activity, I think, John, it really could be one of the most important ways a person with MS can take control of their disease. And as you mentioned, regardless of your physical condition, there's almost always something someone can do to increase their physical activity.
You know, we saw ACTRIMS presentations focused on testing the viability of various biomarkers that could help detect MS activity before MS actually surfaces. They can help predict disease severity and measure someone's response to specific therapies. So can you help us out a little and explain first what biomarkers are?
Yeah, sure. It's important to have those definitions. So a biomarker is something that can be objectively measured and is an indicator of some type of biological process in the body. So I'll give you an example. Perhaps you and some of our viewers today have had a liver function test. This test measures the levels of proteins in the blood that are released by liver cells after they've been damaged. The liver function test is a biomarker for liver damage. The higher the level of the proteins in the blood, the more damage is occurring to your liver. So that's what a biomarker is and does.
Well, thank you for clarifying something that sometimes can sound very confusing. Which biomarkers are being used to better understand MS?
Right, so there's growing evidence that a protein that's called neurofilament light chain, it has an acronym of NFL, not to be confused with National Football League, but neurofilament light chain, or NFL, could be a biomarker that tells us something about MS. So NFL, or neurofilament light chain, is a structural protein of nerve cells. And when nerve cells get damaged, this structural protein's released, and some of those proteins find their way to the blood. Again, just like the liver function test. And so we've recently learned how to accurately measure the levels of NFL in the blood. And it's really a non-specific biomarker of damage to the central nervous system that's being studied for applications to MS.
Camille asked, what does this research mean for her as someone who's living with MS?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So as I mentioned, this test, this neurofilament light chain test, it's not specific to MS. But once it's fully developed, and it's not quite ready for prime time, but it's getting closer, But once it's fully developed, it could be used to help more quickly and more accurately diagnose someone with MS. It could be used to monitor response to therapy and help guide treatment decisions. It could lead to faster clinical trials of new agents, and perhaps lead to new agents that could reduce nervous system damage that we know are really badly needed for people living with progressive forms of MS.
There's growing evidence that having other health conditions or comorbidities can make MS work or make it worse, I should say, and reduce someone's quality of life. So it's really important to understand who's more likely to experience comorbidities and also to raise awareness of the need to address these kinds of conditions. I know one study presented at ACTRIMS looked at differences in MS outcomes based on the health records of people who were living with MS. And I'm wondering if you can update us on what the researchers found and how does this impact the type of care someone with MS should be receiving?
Right, so I think the study you're referring to, John, was performed at Case Western Reserve University, and it looked at health records of almost 1,200 people with MS that were treated at the Cleveland Clinic's Mellon Center for MS. And the investigators were interested to learn what factors could contribute to increased risk for comorbidities like high blood pressure and high cholesterol levels in people with MS. And so what they found was that being older or having a high body mass index increased the risk for high blood pressure. They also reported that lower income or being African American increased the odds of that particular comorbidity. The study also showed that male gender, older age, and a higher body mass index were risk factors for increased risk of high cholesterol. And so I think the take-home message for me for this is that this study and other studies that suggest that these manageable comorbidities should be part of a comprehensive care plan for people living with MS.
A team of researchers investigated links between MS progression and socioeconomic status. How did they conduct this research and what did they find?
Right, so this was an interesting study. It was conducted by a team at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, and it took advantage of an emerging technology called optical coherence tomography. And we got another acronym that's easier to say, OCT for short. And this technology, OCT, it's a non-invasive imaging test that uses light to take cross-sections of pictures of your retina. And your retina is a thin layer of nerve cells in the back of your eye, and these are light-sensitive cells, and they send nerve impulses to your brain where the visual images are formed. So for this study, let's think of the retina as a window into the brain. Recent research has shown that thinning of the retina correlates with brain shrinkage or brain atrophy, and evidence is accumulating that the gradual accumulation of disability, and particularly in progressive MS, is due to this brain atrophy. So another way of thinking about this is that the thinning of the retina that you can detect by OCT could be an emerging biomarker, particularly for progressive MS. So the study was trying to ask the question of whether socioeconomic factors contribute to poor outcomes in people with progressive MS. It's essentially the question they're trying to ask. And what they found is that people with lower household incomes and higher rates of retinal, or had higher rates of retinal thinning than people in higher income households. This is consistent with other studies that report poor outcomes in people from lower income groups. Now, the exact reasons why people from lower income households had poor outcomes isn't altogether clear. In this case, all of the participants in the study were getting good medical care from Johns Hopkins. But it might be related to a higher incidence of comorbidities. Detect a theme here, John, that we know is a consequence or occurs in people from lower income households. It really, again, highlights the need to prevent and better manage those comorbidities.
Well, Shannon has written in, and Shannon tells us that she's a veteran who's living with MS. And she feels like her MS progression is related to her service. Can you tell us what was presented at ACTRIMS about veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, and MS?
Sure. So first, what I should say is, our recently published prevalence study estimated that there were almost 70,000 veterans that live with MS. And it also indicated that about 10,000 of these veterans had a service-connected disability of MS. Now, the study you're referring to was focused on trying to understand the impact of pre-existing PTSD on the severity and progression of MS. Now, to answer the question, the investigators identified two cohorts of veterans from a VA MS registry. The first group was a group of people with MS and pre-existing PTSD, and the second group are people that were living just with MS. And what they found was that the people with MS and pre-existing PTSD had more active disease than people that just had MS alone. And they also found that veterans with both MS and PTSD had more rapid progression of neurological disability. Now, it's not really clear what the connection is specifically between PTSD and an increase in MS disease activity, but what I would say it's consistent with other studies that observe worse outcomes for people with other kind of comorbid psychiatric conditions like depression. And to me, what these findings highlight really is the need for early recognition and appropriate treatment of psychiatric conditions in people living with MS.
You know, as more people with MS continue to age, there's emerging evidence that shows some of the unique impacts of aging on people with MS. Inflammation is one way the immune system fights infection, but it's also the major culprit in MS. Now, I know there was research on inflammaging presented at ACTRIMS. Can you tell us what this is and how it contributes to MS progression?
Sure. So the immune system, like everything else, John, as we age, also ages, and there are consequences of that aging. The immune system has two sort of main divisions, if you will. The adaptive arm of the immune system, which is the part of immunity that recognizes specific elements or specific antigens, and it seems to be driving the inflammation that in the nervous system that leads to relapses. But this part of the immune system tends to decline as we age, and this is called immunosenescence. The other arm or major part of the immune system is called the innate immune system. This is part of the immune system that's it's not really more non-specific. It's our first line of defense against pathogens. This part of the immune system actually gets more active as we age. And that's a process that's now, this is a new term we're all getting used to, that's called inflammaging. Now, inflammaging results in a low-grade chronic inflammation. It may contribute to a number of diseases of aging, things like atherosclerosis or heart disease or even Alzheimer's disease. And there's a growing data that suggests that inflammaging might contribute to MS, especially to driving the more progressive forms or phases of MS that seem to dominate as people age. So Dr. Ben Siegel from The Ohio State University gave a really terrific keynote address and presentation on inflammaging, and suggested that interventions that could slow or reverse this inflammaging should be explored as strategies that could slow down or stop progressive forms of MS.
We also heard about the concept of biological age at ACTRIMS. Can you tell us what biological age means and what its connection to MS progression is?
Sure. So biological age describes the physiologic condition of the body, and it doesn't necessarily depend on chronologic age. So the basic idea here behind biological age is that aging occurs as you gradually accumulate damage to cells and tissues in your body, and it differs from chronological age because it takes into account a number of other factors than just the day you were born. So the actual number comes down to a few different variables and physiologic factors. It does include chronological age, but it also includes your family history and genetics and lifestyle and nutrition and other diseases or comorbidities, and it takes all those things into account. So for example, studies have shown in large groups of people in their 30s that the biological age of a group of people in their 30s could vary anywhere from 25 to 60. So that's how much it can vary. Now, data was presented during the ACTRIMS meeting that suggested that increase in biological aging could contribute to increased disability progression in MS.
So what can people who are living with MS do by making changes in modifiable lifestyle factors that might actually slow their biological aging?
I think you know the answer to this, John. But regular exercise might be the most important thing a person can do to slow down biological aging. Maintaining a healthy weight, eating more fruits and vegetables, reducing the amount of fast food and white bread and soda and those kinds of things. Smoking, if you're smoking, stop smoking. It also contributes to biological aging. And of course, another benefit of this healthy lifestyle is reducing the risk for the other diseases of aging, like diabetes, like cardiovascular disease, so forth, which we also know contributes to accelerated disability.
Well, I just think that it is great for people to know that they can take the next step in improving their overall disease course without having to wait for the next pharmacological invention to come along. It doesn't have to be a pill, doesn't have to be an infusion. It can actually be choices that they make every day.
I agree, and I absolutely agree, John. In my mind, the combination of a disease-modifying therapy and incorporating these lifestyle and wellness factors is a sort of double whammy on MS, if you will. And if you're incorporating both strategies, you're doing everything you can, everything in your power to minimize the effects of MS and help live your best life.
Well, you shared some great highlights from the ACTRIMS forum and great information about these emerging areas of research. What would you say are your top 3 takeaways that you'd like our audience to remember?
Sure. So my first message would be that despite the challenges of the pandemic, progress continues to be made in our understanding and treating of MS, and that we're closer than we ever have been to cures for MS. My next message would be and we've been saying this, that there is a lot a person living with MS can do to enhance their quality of life, to reduce the impact of MS, and to slow down or perhaps even halt disease progression. And we talked a lot about this already, a lot about diet, exercise, healthy lifestyle, and so forth. And finally, what I'd like to point out is that you can help advance MS research by participating in a clinical trial or participating in a research study. And you can find opportunities for participating in research on our website, and I believe we'll be showing some links to that in the presentation. I did want to highlight a new and timely opportunity for people to be aware of, and for you to be able to share your experience with the COVID vaccine. So there's a study that we have developed in collaboration with the iConquer MS patient-powered research network. And the objective of the study is to learn more about how the COVID vaccines are affecting people with MS. So if you're interested, I'd invite you to follow the links that'll be presented shortly if you're interested in participating in this or other research.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bebo, for sharing your insights and expertise with us. Now let's continue taking more of the questions that our audience has for you. Jean is asking, since you mentioned that word cures, how far away are we from a possible cure?
Well, so I think you may have noticed that I intentionally pluralized cure and used the word cures, because I think there are multiple cures and there are multiple pathways to get to those multiple cures. And I think, it depends on where you are in your journey with MS, what a cure, what the definition of that is for you. But with that being said, I think we're getting much closer to being able to prevent MS from happening in the first place. We've been learning a lot about what being able to diagnose MS earlier, recognizing it before damage to the nervous system occurs, and being able to turn it off before it starts. I think we're on the cusp of that cure. The cure for someone that's already living with MS, I think we're getting closer to that MS being a manageable disease. A little bit, I think of this, John, a little bit like type 1 diabetes, where you're going to take your shot, you're going to take your pill, you're going to deploy these exercise and wellness routines, and nobody else besides you and your immediate family would even know you have MS. And every one of those disease modifying therapies and strategies is getting us closer to a cure for people living with relapsing forms of MS. And then I would say for people living with progressive forms of MS, that tremendous progress is being made towards a better understanding of this form of MS. Investments are being made, some of which, as you know, you mentioned at the beginning, your involvement with the Progressive MS Alliance. Tremendous progress in our understanding of that form of MS, and an evolving landscape of new treatments for that are also milestones towards getting closer to cures for even that form of MS.
Marie wants to know if there are any treatments being studied that are not immunosuppressants.
Well, certainly the in the area of myelin repair, those targets for myelin repair are not immunosuppressant medications. And let's make sure we're having good definitions. So immunodepressant or suppressant, those are medications, some of which are used in MS, some are used in other conditions that really suppress the immune system. Most of the medications in MS I would call immunoregulatory rather than immunosuppressant medications. They modulate immune functions rather than completely dampening them. So just to make that distinction. But I would say that in the area of myelin repair, those therapies are not really focused on the immune system. I would say in progressive MS, part of what's driving that form of disease is more neurodegenerative processes that have parallels with other neurodegenerative diseases, for example, like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease, and strategies that have been tested in those conditions are now being tested in MS. Those aren't really immunomodulatory factors. And then, of course, we talked a lot about it already. The lifestyle and wellness activities and exercise are also non-pharmacological, non-immunoregulatory approaches for helping with MS.
Carmen is wondering if there's research being done about complementary and alternative medicine and how it may impact MS.
So certainly an area of active investigation, and certainly the society is supporting efforts to try to understand the potential benefits of more complementary alternative therapies. And I think we're going to learn in the next few years if and how those approaches and when they would be appropriate for use in MS, John.
Rich wants to know whether there was any specific research reported on secondary progressive MS.
So certainly an area of active investigation. I think one of the things for our viewers to keep in mind is that we talked about this adaptive immune system and its inflammation that is driving relapses, and that comes from the immune system from outside of the nervous system and traffics into the nervous system and causes the damage. And then there's a parallel process that's happening in MS that's more compartmentalized within the nervous system, that is driven by more the innate immune system that lives within the central nervous system. And so I think a lot of what we're discovering and that has implications for people with secondary progressive MS really are those pathways that are compartmentalized within the nervous system that are driving that more insidious progression. And so there's tremendous amount. I would say the MS movement is really sort of turning in that direction and focusing a lot of energy, attention, and resources to understanding those processes that drive the more progressive forms or progressive phases of MS, that parallel process that's compartmentalized behind the wall of the nervous system. So we're starting to get to the bottom of it, John.
Arlene is asking if there is a way for people to donate their bodies to MS research.
Yeah, great question. So in order to find a cure for MS, we have to study MS. Animal models and cell culture models and things are important and yield hypotheses and ideas that have been invaluable in progress we've made in MS. But in order really to understand MS, you have to study MS. And in order to study MS, sometimes you need to have tissue, and so blood cells and even tissue from MS. So I would respond to Arlene by saying there are and society supported tissue banks for collecting, essentially collecting nervous system tissue upon a person's death with MS, that they can contribute that tissue to science. And I believe we'll include those links to some of those society supported tissue banks in the information to follow the presentation.
Well, I want to thank all of you who've submitted your questions today, and I want to thank you, Dr. Bebo, for joining us.
Great to be with you as always, John.
I think that one of the best things that anyone can do for themselves, especially during these uncertain times, is to make sure that the information they're getting is credible and reliable. So we'd like to share some resources with you, and these are resources that you can count on to be current and be credible. I want to remind you that the National MS Society's MS Navigator team is your best partner when it comes to connecting you to the very best information and resources on living with MS. You can reach an MS Navigator by phone, email, or through the Society's website by chat. And I'll also remind you that the MS Society brings people together through peer connection programs like self-help groups, the MS Friends Helpline and Paired Program, and the National MS Society's Facebook community. To learn more, please visit the Society's website at nationalmssociety.org/connections programs. For more information about the ACTRIMS Forum, please visit forum.actrims.org. If you'd like to learn more about participating in research studies like the I Conquer MS study that Dr. Bebo talked about, or if you're looking for information about COVID-19 and MS, you'll also see additional online resources on your screen. Every week on the Real Talk MS podcast, I continue the conversation that we start here. So I hope you'll take a few minutes and give Real Talk MS a listen. You'll find the Real Talk MS podcast at realtalkms.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, pretty much wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Walk MS 2021 is coming, and this year, Walk MS will meet you where you are to connect, celebrate, and make a difference like never before. For more information, please visit walkms.org. You can connect with the National MS Society, along with others affected by MS, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. I encourage you to like those posts, subscribe to those channels, and make sure that you're on the Society's mailing list so you'll continue to receive the latest information on MS and updates on upcoming programs like this one. I'd like to thank Dr. Nancy Sykott and Dr. Bruce Bebo for joining us today. And I'd also like to thank our national sponsor, SureScripts, for their support. Please remember that a recording of this webinar will be available at the Society's website at nationalmssociety.org/MSExpert, as well as on Facebook and YouTube. I hope you'll join us for next Friday's edition of Ask an MS Expert, when we're going to be talking about new approaches to treating MS with Dr. Michael Kornberg. And now I have a favor to ask each of you. Getting your feedback on today's webinar is important. So you'll see a survey pop up in a moment when we close out the webinar. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, you'll see that link pinned to the comments section. And on YouTube, you'll find that link in the program description. Completing the survey makes a real difference. The information you provide helps us continuously improve, and it helps shape future programs. The survey takes just 1 minute, so I hope you'll take that minute to fill it out. On behalf of Dr. Nancy Sykott, Dr. Bruce Bebo, and the National MS Society, I want to thank you once again for joining us. Please stay safe and make healthy choices.